big round of applause for Mr. Jerry Dahlgren.
My father's mother, also my grandma, was in her 80s when she decided to leave Nebraska and visit us in Portland, Oregon. She grew up in Nebraska, had 13 kids, 12 of which made it to adulthood, and had never been to the West Coast. She had never seen the ocean. So when she came to Portland, Oregon, we decided we're going to show her the state. And so we did. We decided we were going to go camping around the state. The ocean was, of course, spectacular and took her breath away, just like mine did there for a second. But then we went to Crater Lake National Park. We had never been there either, so it was a first for all of us. Now, Crater Lake is now an extinct volcano that, when it was not extinct, it blew its top and then filled up with water. And it is just an absolute beautiful sight. It's very deep and very blue. I mean, it is so deep, the bottom has not even been discovered in some places. And on occasion, you can find a chopstick floating on the water. We found a great campsite at the head of the trail into this wilderness ravine area. I hiked it all day. I was about a freshman in high school, I think, or 8th grade, somewhere around that point. I was the only child left at home. And being that the elevation where we were staying was so high, even though it was summer, it got very, very cold at night. And we decided that we were going to go to bed early. There was a talk scheduled by the Rangers, which we decided not to go to, and hit the bed instead, which turned out not to be the best decision. We went to bed, like I say, my father, my grandmother, and my mother were in the tent, and I slept in the car with the dog. Apparently in the middle of the night, my father heard a scratching noise. So he popped his head out of the tent, and he saw a bear with our cooler on his lap, trying to get the lock open with his claws. This was obviously smarter than the average bear. Now, my father took exception to the fact that this bear was trying to abscond with our food supply. He got out a flashlight, shined it at the bear, waved his arms, and informed the bear that this was our food. The bear was not impressed, and actually was getting mildly annoyed. So he rolled the cooler over to the ravine and pushed it over the edge. And then he too followed it. Meanwhile, my mother didn't think that my dad's actions were prudent and was screaming for him to return to the tent, which he did. Where was I? Asleep in the car with the dog. The dog did not wake up during all this, or else he thought it too would be prudent just to remain silent. So once the sun rose, my dad looked over the edge of the ravine and saw our cooler with its lid popped open. He and I descended into the ravine via the trail that was so conveniently camped next to. We didn't find much. The bear had devoured the ham, the bacon, the hot dogs, and any other produce and food item he could find. What we were able to salvage were a couple of bottles of beer, which felt slimy. Apparently the bear was looking for refreshment, and we did find one egg which the bear apparently missed. The rest of the eggs were gone. So as we were picking up the beer, the cooler, and the egg, I looked up and saw the bear. and the bear was watching us. I told my father, who then decided we should go back to camp. After all, the bear outnumbers us 4 claws to none. The bear, seeing our retreat, rolled up on all 4s. Apparently, he was too satiated to just stand up and lumbered off into the woods. We reported this to the park ranger, who couldn't understand why we left our food out. The talk, which we missed, was adamant about securing food in a bear-proof manner. We had never camped in an area with bears, especially bears that were smarter than the average bear. After replacing much of the food, we then locked it into our car. The next morning we arose to find scratch marks on the trunk of the car that I was sleeping in.
No!
Apparently the bear had returned for seconds, but I and the dog slept through it. It turned out to be a very memorable trip for Grandma.
Jerry Dahlgren.